The emergency beacon screamed across 17 star systems before anyone bothered to answer. Captain Zarath of the Celestial Harmony clutched her communication console with trembling claws, watching the distant explosion that had been her escort fleet mere moments ago. The pirates had come from nowhere, emerging from the asteroid field like predators from the deep. Her ship carried 3,000 refugees from the Kethmaran colonies, families fleeing the advancing void swarm that had already consumed 12 worlds in their sector. They were scientists, teachers, children, the elderly, all packed into cargo holds, meant for supplies. Now they were sitting targets in space, their engines damaged and life support failing. "This is Captain Zarath of the Civilian Transport Celestial Harmony," she broadcast on all frequencies, her voice cracking with desperation. "We are under attack by unknown hostiles. 3,000 souls aboard, including younglings. Our escort is destroyed. Engines offline. Life support at 30% and falling. Please, anyone who receives this transmission, we need immediate assistance." The Veltar pirates circled her ship like scavengers around a dying beast. Their leader, Captain Morgoth, was infamous throughout the Outer Rim for his cruelty. He took slaves, sold organs, and left no witnesses. His massive dreadnought, the Bloodfang, locked weapons on the helpless transport. "Surrender your cargo and passengers," came the gravelly voice over the comm. "Your ship's resources will be stripped. Your people will serve new masters. Resist, and we will space you all and take what we want from your floating corpse." Zarath looked at her crew, 7 beings from different species united only by their dedication to saving lives. Her first officer, a crystalline Jexri named Quinn, sparkled with nervous energy. Her engineer, an amphibious Groll called Bex, worked frantically to restore power. They all knew the truth that hung unspoken in the recycled air. No one was coming. The Galactic Council fleets were engaged elsewhere, fighting the Void Swarm. The Trade Federation had recalled its ships to protect commercial routes. Local defense forces had been overwhelmed weeks ago. "Captain," whispered her communications officer, a young Terran exchange student named David Chen. "I'm picking up something strange. The distress beacon is still transmitting, but it's bouncing off some kind of relay network. The signal is being amplified and redirected." Zarath frowned. Relay networks were expensive and rare in this sector. Who would maintain relays out here? "The signature is unfamiliar," David said, his fingers dancing over holographic displays. "But the signal strength is incredible. It's reaching systems I've never heard of, places not even on the star charts." Outside, the Bloodfang was positioning itself for boarding. Smaller raider ships moved to surround the transport, their weapon systems charging. Zarath had perhaps 10 minutes before they cut through her hull. She activated the ship-wide communication system. "All passengers, this is your captain. Please remain calm and follow the instructions of your section leaders. We are experiencing technical difficulties, but help may be coming." It was a lie, but sometimes hope was all you could offer. David suddenly sat up straight, his human features animated with excitement and fear. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission. It's coming from outside our sensor range, but the power signature is enormous." "Put it through," Zarath ordered. Static filled the bridge, then a voice emerged. It was speaking Galactic Standard, but with an accent Zarath had never heard. The words were clipped, precise, and carried an undertone that made her scales prickle with unease. "Transport vessel Celestial Harmony. This is the Earth Defense Force vessel Ragnarok. We have received your distress call. Be advised, we are not a rescue ship. We are not humanitarian aid. We are what your species send when diplomacy has failed. Maintain position and prepare for immediate tactical support. ETA 7 minutes. The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Earth Defense Force? Quinn chimed in confusion. I've never heard of such an organization. And what did they mean about what our species send? Zarath felt a chill run down her spine. Earth was listed in the galactic databases as a restricted world, classified as a Class 12 death world. Its inhabitants, called humans, were supposedly primitive and quarantined for everyone's safety. The few reports she'd seen described them as insanely violent, capable of surviving in conditions that would kill most civilized species. "David," she said slowly, "you're human. What do you know about Earth Defense Forces?" The young man had gone very pale. Captain, I've been off-world for 6 years, studying at the academy. But before I left, I remember hearing stories. My grandfather served in something called the Marine Corps. He had these old videos, training footage. I thought it was just historical curiosity." "What kind of training footage?" David swallowed hard. "How to kill things, Captain. How to kill things very, very efficiently." Before anyone could respond, their sensors screamed a warning. Something massive had just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. The signature was unlike anything in their databases. It was moving fast, accelerating at rates that should have turned any crew into paste. Captain Morgoth's voice crackled over the comm, no longer confident. "Unknown vessel, you will withdraw immediately or be destroyed. This salvage is claimed under Veltar rating rights." The response came not from the approaching ship, but from 3 other directions simultaneously. More vessels had appeared, moving with impossible coordination. The lead ship's voice returned, and this time Zarath could hear something in the background, a rhythmic pounding that sounded almost like drums. "Veltar vessels, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Ragnarok. You have exactly 60 seconds to release the civilian transport and withdraw from this system. This is your only warning." Morgoth laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "You send 1 ship against my fleet? I have 12 vessels and 300 warriors. Withdraw, or we will add your bones to our trophies." "Sir," came another human voice over the channel, younger and excited. "Tactical confirms 4 Veltar dreadnoughts, 6 heavy raiders, and 2 support ships. Estimated crew complement 287. Weapons are primitive plasma cannons and kinetic projectiles. Armor is standard durasteel plating." "Copy that, Lieutenant. Time to contact. 4 minutes to optimal firing range, Admiral." "Veltar fleet," Admiral Chen's voice returned, now completely devoid of warmth. "Final warning. Release the transport." Instead of responding, Morgoth opened fire on the approaching human ship. Plasma bolts that could melt through starship hulls lanced across space. They struck the human vessel and simply disappeared, absorbed by some kind of shielding Zarath had never seen before. "Well," said Admiral Chen, and Zarath could hear the smile in her voice. "Now you've made it personal. All ships. Weapons free. Let's show these pirates why humans aren't allowed in polite society." What happened next would be talked about in spacer bars for generations. The human ships didn't just attack, they hunted. They moved through space like living things, coordinating with a precision that suggested they shared a single mind. Their weapons weren't the clean energy beams favored by civilized species. They used projectiles, massive chunks of metal accelerated to significant fractions of light speed. When they hit, they didn't just damage, they erased. The first Veltar ship simply ceased to exist, turned to expanding plasma and debris in the span of a heartbeat. The second tried to flee and was run down like prey by something too fast to track properly. The third managed to get off a distress call before it joined its companions in destruction. But it wasn't the efficiency of the attack that horrified Zarath. It was the sounds coming over the comm channels. The humans were singing. Battle songs in their native language, voices raised in harmony as they systematically dismantled a pirate fleet that had terrorized the sector for years. In less than 6 minutes, it was over. 12 Veltar ships had become clouds of debris and radiation. The only survivor was Captain Morgoth himself, his command ship crippled, but in the human ship Ragnarok dwarfed the celestial harmony as it pulled alongside. Where Zarath's vessel was elegant curves and gleaming metal designed for comfort and efficiency, The human ship was a weapon barely contained by its hull. Angular surfaces absorbed sensor sweeps. Weapon ports lined its flanks like the teeth of some ancient predator, and its engines burned with a blue fire that hurt to look at directly. "Permission to come aboard," came a new voice over the comm. Female, crisp, with that same unsettling accent. "This is Commander Lisa Park, Marine Expeditionary Unit. I'll be leading the rescue operation." Zarath hesitated. The galactic databases were clear about human physiology. They were adapted to a world of constant violence, their bones dense enough to stop small projectiles, their muscles capable of exerting tremendous force. Their planet had gravity nearly twice what most species could tolerate, atmosphere thick with oxygen that was literally toxic to many races, and weather patterns that regularly produced storms capable of leveling cities. But she had 3,000 refugees aboard a dying ship. "Permission granted, Commander. Docking Bay 7. When the human shuttle arrived, Zarath was waiting with her senior staff and a full security detail. Not that security would matter if the humans decided to be hostile, but protocols existed for a reason. The shuttle was another work of functional brutality, all angles and armor plating. When the doors opened, Zarath got her first look at humans in their natural environment. Commander Park was smaller than expected, perhaps 1.5 meters tall, with dark hair pulled back severely and equipment that looked like it could outfit a small army. But it was her movements that caught Zarath's attention. The human moved like a predator, every step calculated, eyes constantly scanning for threats. Behind her came 6 more humans, each carrying enough weapons to arm a squad of normal soldiers. "Captain Zarath?" Commander Park extended a hand in what the databases said was a human greeting gesture. Zarath cautiously extended her claw, only to find her entire appendage engulfed in a grip that could have crushed steel. "Welcome aboard, Commander. We are grateful for your assistance." "Ma'am, I need a full damage report and casualty count. My medics are standing by, but I need to know what we're dealing with." As they walked through the ship's corridors, Zarath couldn't help but notice how the human soldiers moved. They flowed like water, checking corners, covering angles, treating the civilian transport like an active war zone. Their equipment was a mixture of technology she recognized and devices that made no sense. "Commander, may I ask how you arrived so quickly? Our sensors showed no ships in the system when we sent the distress call." Park glanced at her with eyes that seemed older than her apparent age. "We weren't in the system, Captain. We were in a different galaxy." "I'm sorry?" "The relay network that picked up your signal belongs to the Human Monitoring Service. We maintain listening posts throughout known space, watching for signs of the kinds of activity that require our particular skill set." They had reached the main refugee compartment, and Zarath's stomach clenched. 3,000 beings packed into a space meant for cargo, families huddled together on makeshift bedding, the air thick with fear and desperation. Children of a dozen species cried while their parents tried to comfort them with words no one believed. Commander Park stopped dead in her tracks. "Jesus Christ," she whispered, then raised her voice. "Corpsemen, I need medical teams down here now." The transformation was immediate. The predatory alertness shifted into something else, a focused intensity that reminded Zarath of emergency workers during natural disasters. The humans spread through the compartment with practiced efficiency, their intimidating weapons forgotten as they began setting up medical stations and distributing supplies. One of the Marines, a massive male with skin darker than space and arms like starship support beams, knelt beside a group of Kethmaran younglings. His voice, when he spoke to them in broken Kethmaran, was gentle enough to soothe a frightened animal. "It's okay, little ones, we're here to help. Can you tell me if anyone is hurt?" Zarath watched in fascination as her refugees, who had been terrified moments before, began to relax around the humans. There was something about the way they moved, the care they took with the injured and frightened, that spoke of experience beyond mere training. "Commander," she said quietly, "how many refugee operations have your people conducted?" Park was directing the setup of a field hospital, barking orders in rapid human languages that seemed to involve a lot of consonants. "This month? This is number 47. Human space has been dealing with the void swarm expansion for 6 standard months. We've evacuated over 2 million beings from threatened worlds." 2 million? Zarath's head spun. The Galactic Council said human space was too dangerous for contact. "They said your people were primitive and violent." "We are violent," Park said matter-of-factly, checking a data pad. "Extremely violent, but we're also very, very good at protecting things we consider ours. And right now, Captain, your refugees are ours." A commotion near the medical station drew their attention. One of the Kethmoran adults was arguing with a human medic, refusing treatment. The human, a young female with hands that glowed with some kind of bioelectric field, was patient, but persistent. "Sir, you have internal bleeding. If I don't treat this now, you'll die." "I will not be touched by a Deathworlder," the Kethmoran snapped. "Your kind are monsters, killers." The medic looked hurt, but stepped back. "Okay, sir, I understand. But please, let me show you something." She activated a holographic display that showed the refugee's internal anatomy in detail. "See these dark spots? That's blood pooling in your abdominal cavity. You have maybe 2 hours before you go into shock." The Kethmoran's mate, a female holding 2 younglings, made a sound of distress. "Velton, please, for the children. I would rather die than be contaminated by their touch." The female medic nodded sadly. "I respect your choice, sir. But may I ask you something? Have you ever heard of the Terran Hippocratic Oath?" The Kethmoran looked confused. "No. It's something our medical personnel swear when they become doctors. The important part goes like this. First, do no harm. We don't care what species you are, what your politics are, whether you like us or not. If you're hurt, we help. That's what makes us human." She turned to leave, then paused. "Your younglings are beautiful, by the way. I have children of my own back on Earth. If anything happens to you, I promise they'll be taken care of." Commander Park watched the exchange with a slight smile. "That's Petty Officer Martinez, best field medic in the fleet. Lost her husband in the first void swarm attack on human space. She's been running refugee ops ever since." She mentioned children of her own. 2 daughters, 8 and 10 years old. They're in the evacuation camps on Luna waiting for their mom to come home. Zarath felt something shift in her understanding. "How many humans are involved in these operations?" "All of us," Park said simply. "Every ship, every crew, every family. When the galaxy burns, humans don't debate or form committees. We grab our weapons and we fix it." An alert chimed on Park's communicator. She answered quickly, her expression darkening as she listened. "Admiral Chen sends her compliments, Captain Zarath. We've finished interrogating Captain Morgoth. You're going to want to hear this." They made their way to a secure conference room where Admiral Chen appeared via hologram. She was older than Park, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much. Behind her, Zarath could see the bridge of the Ragnarok, a space that looked more like a war room than a ship's command center. "Captain Zarath, we've learned some disturbing information from our prisoner. The Veltar aren't independent pirates. They're working for someone called the Harvest Fleet." "I've never heard of them," Zarath said. "Neither had we until today. According to Morgoth, they're a coalition of slaver species that have been following the Void Swarm expansion, picking up refugees and selling them to buyers in the outer void. They've captured over 50,000 beings in the last month." Zarath felt her scales go cold. 50,000? The good news is we know where their main base is. The bad news is it's heavily defended and located in a system claimed by the hegemony of Keltar. They have diplomatic immunity. "So you can't attack them?" Admiral Chen smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression Zarath had ever seen. Captain, I want you to understand something about humans. We didn't join your galactic community because we weren't invited. We were quarantined because species like the Keltar were afraid of us. They were right to be afraid. She leaned forward, her image flickering slightly. The Harvest Fleet made a mistake when they started preying on refugees. They made it personal, and humans have a saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. We've been preparing for a very long time. What are you planning to do? We're going to get those 50,000 people back, all of them, and we're going to make sure the Harvest Fleet never threatens another civilian transport again. Commander Park stood straighter. Admiral, the Expeditionary Unit volunteers for the assault. Denied, Commander. This is going to require a larger response. I'm calling in the First Fleet. Zarath had no idea what that meant, but she could see Park go pale. Ma'am, the First Fleet hasn't been deployed since the Unification Wars. Are you sure that's necessary? Commander, they have 50,000 slaves and the diplomatic protection of a hegemony that thinks humans are primitive. It's time to update their understanding. Admiral Chen's image turned back to Zarath. Captain, we're going to transfer your refugees to our hospital ship. They'll be safe there while we deal with this situation. You and your crew, the human First Fleet assembled in the void between stars, far from any inhabited system. Captain Zarath watched from the observation deck of the hospital ship Mercy as vessels emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. She had thought the Ragnarok was large, but these ships defied comprehension. The flagship, a dreadnought called Retribution, was nearly 4 kilometers long and bristled with weapon systems that had no names in galactic standard. Surrounding it were dozens of vessels ranging from sleek destroyers to massive carriers that disgorged clouds of smaller attack craft. Each ship moved with the same predatory grace she had observed in the human Marines, but scaled up to a level that made her head spin. Impressive, isn't it? Admiral Chen had joined her at the observation window. In person, the human leader was smaller than her holographic appearance suggested, but there was something about her presence that filled the room. Admiral, how many ships do humans have? That's classified, Captain. But I will tell you that the First Fleet represents about 10% of our total naval capacity. Zarath felt her legs go weak. If this massive armada was only 10% of human military might, what did that say about the species the galaxy had dismissed as primitive? Why were you quarantined? Really? Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment, watching as the fleet completed its formation. 300 years ago, when humans first achieved faster-than-light travel, we sent diplomatic missions to every spacefaring species we could find. We wanted to join the galactic community, share our knowledge, learn from others. She turned to face Zarath directly. Do you know how many of those missions came home? How many? None. Not a single one. Every human ship that made contact with galactic civilization was either destroyed or captured. Our diplomats were dissected by species that wanted to understand how Deathworlders could survive in space. Our trade vessels were seized as contraband. Our exploration crews were sold into slavery. Zarath felt sick. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. The official records say humans were too dangerous for contact. The truth is, we were too valuable as specimens and slaves. So humanity made a choice. We withdrew from galactic space and built our own civilization. We had 300 years to develop in isolation, to become what we needed to become. And what did you become? Admiral Chen smiled grimly. We became the monsters they said we were, but monsters with a purpose. An alert chimed through the ship's communication system. Admiral Chen to the bridge, all senior staff to battle stations. As they made their way to the bridge, Zarath noticed the change in the human crew. The casual efficiency she had observed before was replaced by something harder, more focused. These beings were preparing for war, and war was clearly their natural element. The Bridge of the Mercy was a masterpiece of controlled chaos. Holographic displays showed the fleet disposition, target analysis, and real-time intelligence from reconnaissance drones that had already penetrated the Keltar system. The main screen displayed their destination, a massive space station orbiting a dead world. "Tactical assessment," Admiral Chen ordered as she took her command chair. "The Harvest Fleet Base is located on Station Omega-7, reported a human officer with cybernetic implants that interfaced directly with the ship's computers. Keltar registry shows it as a mining platform, but our scans reveal holding cells for approximately 60,000 beings. The station is defended by a Keltar battle group, 12 ships of the line plus support vessels. Civilian populations? None on the station. However, the Keltar battle group crews total approximately 15,000 beings." Admiral Chen nodded. "Standard protocols. Disable, don't destroy unless they continue to resist after surrender terms are offered. We're here for the slaves, not to start a war with the hegemony." "Admiral," interrupted another officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the Keltar flagship. They're demanding we withdraw from their territorial space." "Put them through." The main screen shifted to show a Keltar admiral, a reptilian being with elaborate ceremonial armor and an expression of supreme arrogance. The Keltar were one of the founding species of the galactic community, ancient and proud and utterly convinced of their superiority. "Human vessels, you are in violation of hegemony space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Admiral Chen stood slowly. "Admiral Kethvar, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We are here to recover stolen civilians being held illegally on Station Omega-7. Surrender the slaves and we will depart peacefully." The Keltar's laugh was like grinding stone. "Humans! The galaxy's pet primitives speak of illegal activities? You have no authority here, Deathworlder. Return to your quarantine zone before we are forced to remind you why your species was contained." "Admiral Kethvar, you have one opportunity to resolve this diplomatically. Release the slaves. The beings on this station are legally acquired property purchased from authorized traders. Depart now, or we will destroy your primitive vessels and add your crews to our inventory." Admiral Chen's expression never changed, but Zarath noticed that every human on the bridge seemed to grow very still. "Admiral, are you refusing to return stolen civilians to their homes?" "I am refusing to be dictated to by animals that should have been exterminated centuries ago." The channel closed, leaving the bridge in silence that seemed to press against Zarath's eardrums. "Well," Admiral Chen said calmly, "now it's personal. Fleet Command, execute Operation Homecoming. Rules of engagement are now weapons-free." What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. The human fleet didn't charge forward in a glorious assault. They simply disappeared from sensors, each ship vanishing as advanced stealth systems engaged. For 30 seconds, the Keltar battle group floated alone in space, scanning desperately for targets that were no longer there. Then the humans reappeared, but not where anyone expected. They had used micro-jumps to appear inside the Keltar formation, their weapons already firing. But these weren't the kinetic projectiles they had used against the pirates. These were precision weapons, surgical in their application. The Keltar flagship found its weapon systems simply ceasing to function as targeted electromagnetic pulses fried every circuit. Its engines went dark as focused particle beams severed power conduits. Within minutes, the pride of the hegemony fleet was drifting helplessly in space, its crew unharmed but completely neutralized. The pattern repeated across the battle group. Ship after ship found itself disabled but intact, crews alive but powerless. The humans had turned space combat into a precise art form, disabling rather than destroying with a skill that suggested extensive practice. "Admiral Kethvar, came Admiral Chen's voice over the comm. "Your fleet is neutralized. Your crews are unharmed. This is your final opportunity to surrender the slaves peacefully." The response was a stream of invective in the Keltar language that made the translation software give up in confusion. "I'll take that as a no," Admiral Chen said. "Marines, you are cleared for assault operations." Zarath watched in fascination as human assault shuttles launched from the fleet carriers. These weren't the careful, methodical movements of the rescue operation on her ship. These shuttles moved like living things, weaving through defensive fire with impossible agility. When they reached the station, they didn't dock at airlocks like civilized beings. They cut their way through the hull. The assault was broadcast throughout the human fleet, and Zarath found herself unable to look away. The human Marines flowed through Station Omega-7 like water through a maze, their movements coordinated by communication systems that seemed to operate faster than thought. They encountered resistance from Keltar security forces and Harvest Fleet mercenaries, but the outcome was never in doubt. Humans fought differently than any species Zarath had ever seen. They used their environment, turning the station's own systems against its defenders. They coordinated with a precision that suggested shared consciousness, each Marine knowing exactly where their comrades were and what they were doing. Most importantly, they seemed to thrive in the chaos of combat, becoming more efficient and deadly as the situation became more desperate. But what truly amazed Zarath was their restraint. Despite facing beings who had been torturing and enslaving civilians for months, the humans used non-lethal weapons whenever possible. They neutralized threats efficiently, but they didn't massacre their enemies. "Mercy Control, this is Assault Team Alpha," came a voice over the comm. "We've secured the detention levels, beginning prisoner evacuation now." The main screen shifted to show the interior of the station, and Zarath felt her hearts clench. The holding cells were packed beyond capacity with beings from dozens of species, many showing signs of abuse and malnutrition. Children huddled against their parents, elderly beings lay motionless on bare metal floors, and the stench of despair seemed to emanate from the screen itself. Then the Marines arrived. The transformation was immediate. These warriors who had been cutting through armed resistance moments before became gentle caregivers, speaking softly to frightened prisoners in dozens of languages, carefully lifting the injured, carrying children who were too weak to walk. They had brought medical supplies, food, even toys for the youngest victims. "Admiral Chen," Zarath said quietly, "your people are remarkable." "They're human," the Admiral replied. "That's what we do. We protect those who can't protect themselves, and we punish those who prey on the innocent. The Keltar won't stand for this. The hegemony will demand your punishment." "Let them demand." "Captain, do you know why humans were really quarantined?" "You said it was because other species feared you." "Partially true. But the real reason was that we represented a threat to the Galactic Order. The hegemony, the Trade Federation, the great powers of known space. They all depend on a system where the strong prey on the weak, where slavery is legal if you call it by other names, where genocide is acceptable if it's profitable." Admiral Chen gestured toward the screen showing human Marines carrying rescued children. "Humans don't accept that system. We believe every sentient being has the right to live free from fear, regardless of species or origin. That makes us dangerous to those who profit from misery." "So you've been building your own civilization all this time?" "We've been preparing, building ships, training soldiers, developing technology, waiting for the day when the galaxy would need us more than it feared us." On the screen, the last of the prisoners was being evacuated from the station. Nearly 60,000 beings, freed from slavery and already receiving medical treatment aboard human hospital ships. The operation had taken less than 4 hours. "Admiral," came a report from the tactical officer, "Station Omega-7 is secure. All prisoners evacuated. Assault teams are downloading the station's database and preparing charges." Understood. All ships prepare to withdraw. Set scuttling charges for 30-minute delay. Admiral, Zarath interrupted. What about the Keltar ships? What about them? Their crews are alive. Their ships can be repaired. They'll have an interesting story to tell when they get home. And the station? The station dies, along with every record of who bought slaves, who sold them, who transported them. The Harvest Fleet just went out of business permanently. As the human fleet prepared to depart, Admiral Chen turned to Zarath one final time. Captain, you wanted to witness what humans really are. What will you tell the galaxy? Zarath thought of everything she had seen. The precision of the fleet actions, the restraint shown to enemies, the care given to victims, the absolute determination to protect the innocent, regardless of the cost. I'll tell them the truth, she said finally, that humans aren't the monsters we were told they were. There's something far more dangerous to those who abuse others. And what's that? Heroes. Real heroes who actually keep their promises. Admiral Chen smiled. Captain Zarath, would you be interested in serving as a liaison between human space and the refugee populations? I have a feeling we're going to be very busy in the coming months. Outside the observation window, Station Omega-7 erupted in silent fire, taking with it the infrastructure of an entire slave trade network. The human fleet turned away from the destruction and jumped to hyperspace, carrying 60,000 freed beings toward safety. In the months that followed, the galaxy learned what Captain Zarath had discovered. When someone sent a distress call and humans answered, they didn't send help. They sent justice. They sent protection. They sent the promise that no being should suffer alone in the dark. They sent what the galaxy needed most and feared most, humans who cared enough to act. The quarantine was quietly lifted 6 months later. By then, human rescue fleets were operating in 17 sectors, and the slave trade had all but disappeared from known space. The hegemony of Keltar issued a formal apology for historical misunderstandings and requested permission to establish diplomatic relations. The age of human isolation was over. The age of human protection had begun. Are welcome to accompany us, or we can arrange transport to a safe system. I want to come with you, Zarath said immediately. Those people, whatever species they are, they're refugees like mine. I want to help. This won't be a rescue operation, Captain. This will be war. The kind humans are very good at. Then I need to see it, Zarath said firmly. The galaxy needs to know what happened here, what humans really are. Admiral Chen nodded slowly. Very well. But, Captain, I hope you're prepared for what you're about to witness, because once you see humans at war, you'll understand why the rest of the galaxy was so afraid of us. Tact, held in place by some kind of tractor beam. Transport vessel Celestial Harmony, came Admiral Chen's voice, now gentle and professional. This is Ragnarok. Are you in need of medical assistance or emergency supplies? Zarath found her voice. Our life support is failing. We have wounded. But, Admiral, what about the surviving raider? There was a pause. Captain Morgoth will be transferred to our ship for processing. He has committed crimes against civilian populations. He will be dealt with according to human military justice. What does that mean? Another pause, longer this time. Captain, your species have laws about cruel and unusual punishment. Humans don't. Some lessons need to be taught clearly enough that others understand them. Zarath felt her blood chill. She was beginning to understand why humans were quarantined.